Good, good. Finally have this moment, even though I'm teaching, that breath just felt really, really good. Before I get started, I want to just settle in and pause and feel into this moment. We're all coming from different places, having different experience from today. So I just want us to tune in, and we're going to sit for just 5 minutes. And there won't be any instructions for this one. I will continuously, I just want to let you know that I will, through the talk and meditation parts, I will keep checking the room so I can make sure I let people in. But let's just tune in and find a comfortable position. And just sense if you can be maybe 5 to 10% a little more comfortable. And if you haven't done so, you may begin to soften your gaze. You can look down, look straight ahead, or completely close your eyes. And just be with this moment. Lovely to be here tonight and to be in the space where I can just share my Dharma, my talk, practices that has been helping me. And during that short pause, um, I kept going in and out because I'm also checking the waiting room. So that was just really interesting. I need to figure out how to enable it just for my session, so I don't have to keep going back and forth. But it is what it is for right now. And I hope you are all doing well. Um, I didn't put the ring light on. It was just a lot. I've been in front of the computer a lot these days. I'm sure most of us have. And so I'm using nature and my room light. So hopefully this works for you. I had a lot of meetings, and one of those meetings was my first peer group meeting that I had today. So I'm in a mindfulness meditation teacher certification program. That's a lot. And today was the first peer group meeting. And I didn't know what to expect from it the first time for this first meeting, but I realized that when we came together, it felt like it just reminded me of a couple of things. And one of those things is this importance of Sangha, this coming together, creating this sacred and safe space for us to share what we've been going through, as well as sharing the practices that has helped us get through whatever it is that we're getting through. And it just made me feel even more connected and understanding, like, yeah, we're all like experiencing some form of unpleasantness. We also experience pleasure, right? But it's just so interesting how we can come together and just connect and bond in this way. Um, and hearing different stories on what it is that we're going through and growing through, and coming back to ourselves through mindfulness, through this practice. And I really, really appreciated that moment. And so I already knew what I was going to talk about, but there was something in me that just wanted to express that, because this is what I'm trying to do, or striving to do, is to continue to create these safe spaces, these sacred spaces, with teaching mindfulness and the practices, to help us not only navigate through adversity, just to help us have a practice, to encourage practice. And I just find it so rewarding to be in both this beginner mind and also this teacher role. And it just reminds me that with this practice and with the support of Sangha, we can get to this moment of freedom. It may not be all the time, but there are moments of freedom that we can like touch and tap into. And it feels good. And again, it's not like, every single moment we're just going to have this freedom of feeling, but every single moment we can be mindful. We can have our practice on the cushion, off the cushion, but using these practices to just create a state of remembering, of balance, of grounding, of being in this here and in this now, and feeling super alive in this process and whatever it is that's unfolding. So in tonight's talk, it's titled Impermanence, Equanimity, Cessation, the Pursuit of True Freedom. I didn't even introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Dominique Chaudet. And I'm many things, but I really want to talk about the artist side of me. I am an artist as well as a wellness facilitator. And I draw, I dance, I write, and I just recently dabbled into culinary art. And I'm also a personal trainer. And for me, personal training and creating movements and workouts for my clients is a form of art because I'm just understanding how the body moves and creating these movements or workouts specifically for their body type. It's an art to me. And I bring this up because when you have or you develop your skill as an artist, it takes lots of practice. When I'm done with my work and I look at it and such amazed, like just amazed by it, and I show it to friends and family and they give me this great feedback and clients are happy, I sit back sometimes and just think or recollect on all the practice that it took to get to that moment where I can feel confident in sharing my projects, the studying, the practicing. It was all worth it. And for me, to get to this point of freedom, pursuit of true freedom, we have to, in some ways, understand the art of letting go. And then with the art of letting go, there becomes this practice. With any art, there's practice. And when you come across someone, or I'll just give an example about myself. Oftentimes when I share my story, my closest friends, some of my closest friends won't even know what I'm going through, or they'll just be like, wow, like, I don't even know how to respond because you're just so calm. And that took practice to get to that moment where I can just have this mental calmness in whatever it is that arises. And when you come across someone or when other people just see how I have this ease in letting go or adapting to whatever it is that's happening in my moment-to-moment experience, I'll tell them, and we have to understand that it was all because of practice and understanding exactly what it is that we are practicing and why are we practicing. And just because that, there's a moment where I'm at ease in or through whatever it is that's arising, it doesn't mean that it's voided of fear. The fear, in my case, is still there, but the fear is not controlling me. And I think this is where the development of impermanence, cessation, and equanimity comes into play. These ingredients, there are many ingredients, but I'm focusing on these ingredients that can help us get to this freedom, this liberation, this sense of peace. I also think that with developing impermanence, understanding sensation, and equanimity, we, with more ease, begin to let go. So we can let in all that is happening. and hold space for all that is happening in our internal and external world with that much more compassion, with that much more non-judgment, with that much more acceptance. There's a quote from the Buddha that says, "Whatever is of the nature to arise, all that is of the nature to cease." I sat with that, and in my understanding from that quote is that everything that is conditioned, it has a beginning and an end and begins again. This existence of constant becoming. Um, but to speak more specifically into the context of what I think the Buddha is speaking of or speaking to is more about our experience with the world, how we experience the world, and how we experience the world. He's letting us know that that experience will change. It just will. And when you think about that, right now, we entered into spring. Before there was winter. After spring, there will be summer, right? There's a change in the seasons. Sometimes we have great friendships, and those friendships change. Same with relationships. And then there are those moments when you're around your loved ones and they're fine and you're laughing with them and playing with them or arguing with them. And now the loved ones are no longer here in this physical existence. Change. It will happen. The world that we know is constantly changing. Even this body, things that are happening within this body. I mean, obviously, I don't have the same body that I had when I was 5, 10, as a young adult. The body is always changing and it's going to age, change, impermanence. It's either loss or change, and it's something that I believe we can learn to accept. I would say that was not easy for me before having this practice. This attachment to what you want to remain the same. And then if you can't or you resist this change, I mean, think about it, resisting change, attaching yourself to something actually creates more energy and draining energy than just accepting it and being with it. Can you relate? I mean, if you think about it, do you feel good when you resist change? And how you practice not resisting change and notice what that felt like? It takes practice to let go. And not just let go, but to let go with ease. Excuse me, I'm letting someone in. Okay. Hello. Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I was actually, there was no one in the room, so I was like recording it.
Oh, sorry.
No. I'm glad you're here. So I'll just go over what I was speaking about. And basically the topic for tonight Um, I'm speaking about impermanence, which means like loss and change will happen.
Mm.
Cessation, which is the end of something, and specifically, I'm talking about suffering.
Okay.
And equanimity, which is having or cultivating this calm, mental calmness in whatever that is arising in our experience. Um, so I was just going over just a few things about that, and I'm gonna try to go back just a little bit. So in cultivating these things, I put those ingredients together to kind of let us know that we can experience freedom in whatever it is that is arising, right? And we do this when we practice this art of letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was explaining how, as an artist, because I draw, I write poetry and things of that nature. And as an artist, we have to practice. We practice these skills to develop them and to have this confidence of showing this project to the others. And the same thing goes into practicing this art of letting go, and not just letting go, but letting go with ease, and understanding impermanence, right? So we understand that things in life will change. The way we see or experience the world will change. And I think a lot of times we create suffering within ourselves because we're not accepting change that's going to happen regardless. And so, how do we let go of that idea that things should stay the same with more ease and become more intimate with impermanence? So that was just like a recap of what I was getting into. And
Okay.
and to be honest, I think a lot of times we want things to stay the same because that beginning of something feels good. When we enter a new relationship, or you just had a baby or anything, you just started a new job, this beginning feeling release dopamine. And so we just feel good and we want that feeling to stay the same. And I think that's something like I was exploring myself, this feeling of the beginning part, and just noticing when things are changing. Like one minute I'm in a relationship and it's great, and the next minute it's just like, what the heck? Like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's this quote by John Maxwell's famous quote. You probably heard it before, and it says, change is inevitable, growth is optional.
Mm-hmm.
So I invite you to explore with this question, the answers to this question. How do we grow to become more present and calm in the constant flow of change? Like, can you be present with change and whatever change that is? And how often do we find ourselves resisting change or falling into habits or conditions that create so much suffering within our internal world that in sometimes reflect our external world, all because we're
Yeah.
unable to be with change? Mhm. So I just want to invite us to sit for maybe a minute to think about that, and to think about just exploring where, if you are currently resisting change, whatever that
Mm.
is.
Okay.
So um, I invite you to close your eyes and just take a nice big deep breath in and out through the nostrils. Just a few moments here, and just exploring, where are you resisting change? When you think about this change that is happening, notice what is also happening in your internal world. Are you able to be with it with ease, or does it create tension in the body? Um, if you want, do you want to share if there's any change that you're resisting, or would you like me to just continue talking?
Um, I can't think of like anything specific, but I do have like I think when it comes to like my job and my career, like I know that I want to move on,
Mm,
you know, but I guess I'm resistant in terms of like I don't want to do the work that is required to like move on. Like I'm not applying to new jobs. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? Even though even though I feel like, you know, there has to be a change. And that's been something that's like, I've been like that way for a long time. Like I stay in jobs for a long time and I just either get fired and I've only been fired from one job. So it's either I get fired or like the circumstances just kind of force me out, you
mm.
know? So yeah, that's yeah, something that comes to mind.
I So it seems like, from what I'm understanding, you want this change, but the effort or the path towards the change, there's like resistance to that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And what happens if you start to explore what those resistance, the roots of those resistance are?
Yeah.
Where you can begin to explore
It's
that.
just like really comfortable.
Mm, mhm.
Just like wanting things easy. Like I just want a new job to just fall in my lap. I don't
Right.
want to have to interview and this and that, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think the resistance is just like I guess like maybe lacking motivation and just like not wanting to have to do the work.
I can kind of relate to that when it comes to me stepping into this next chapter of entrepreneurship, because I was actually complacent of where I was, and but I knew I could be earning more, doing way more better things, and being consistent. Like, even though with like the women's workshop, like there's this part of me that
Mhm.
stops and is like, let me investigate that even more. This is it, the change of growth that I'm afraid of, like growing into something great. Am I afraid of great?
Mhm.
And with greatness comes sometimes, as most entrepreneurs would say, failure. And I'm just like kind
Mhm.
of balancing between what is it that can be a distraction from my growth, a distraction to be
Yeah.
with. So, um, and I find like mindfulness practices to be helpful because it allows me to investigate more within my body. And so, just coming back to impermanence, like when we begin to develop this intimacy on impermanence and feel into all the changes and understanding the loss and the change that happens within our world, um, helps us to take a step back or to pause when we're on autopilot. And I've been on autopilot for a very long time. This not really wanting to be with what's happening. So I just keep going, keep going. I don't want to face why I either need to change or face what is changing, whatever the circumstances may be. I just keep going. And then something happens. And then it just makes me stop and pause. And it's annoying, but it's always either a sickness or an injury, something happens to me, and then it just makes me go, okay, I got snapped back into reality, pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like with mindfulness and mindfulness as like the skill that we develop day to day, moment to moment, and this meditation, just this attentive awareness or in this practice to gain insight. So much can be discovered here when we do that, when we do kind of cultivate this practice. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to encourage for us too, like encourage us to hold on to a practice, any practice. This may relate to you, it may not, but I'm sharing that this practice really has helped me in so many ways. Um, and so when I think of mindfulness, it's like this foundation to towards a path of awakening, a path
Mm.
coming back to yourself, a path of being present, and a path of just acceptance with ease. And even if we have to go through taking up responsibility to make change happen, like especially like in the Black community, for example, we can do that with so much compassion and empathy without being attached to it. And if that outcome doesn't come out the way we want it, we're not driven by suffering because we're doing things with compassion without attachment. And that's what
Right.
I learned through this practice. Um, so in my teachings, in my understanding of mindfulness, there's also a teaching called the Four Noble Truth. And so with the
Mhm.
Noble Truth, um, the first one is suffering does exist. Second, there is a cause to all suffering. Third, the cessation of suffering is attainable, meaning the end of suffering is attainable. And fourth, that there is a path to the cessation of suffering. So there is suffering that,
Mhm.
um, but we know that there's a cause to this suffering. We know that the end of suffering is attainable. And so, but how do we get to that end of suffering? And there's something that
Right.
I say often is that suffering is not the end of our story, right? So change is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Is another quote. I don't know who said it,
Yeah. I
but
heard like pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice also.
sorry, I think that's what it is. Pain is inevitable. And we create or we feel into these pains through this change, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so, how do we end the suffering? And it's like pretty much changing our perception of what is happening. Like for me, coming from like, you know, who my ex partner is, that
Mhm.
was a very long relationship that was very hard to let go. And
Right.
a lot of pain, and also living with that person, sharing almost everything, and just have to leave. And I didn't I didn't have this practice at the time. So like it was just I was so stressed out and sad and just wasn't being with change and didn't understand the cessation of suffering. And so I developed so much stress within the body and got super sick. And I that actually was my calling to this whole
Mhm.
journey of minds, just getting super, super sick. And I came across someone who told me about mindfulness meditation and just learning how to love yourself regardless of what you're going through, no matter what. And it was really helpful for me because the sickness, like, I mean, I had to go through a whole procedure to find out everything that was going on. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And it's just more suffering. And then the desire to wish that things were back to normal. It's just all of this kind
Mhm.
of piles up. But I'm grateful for this practice because It allows me to have this focused attention mostly on the mind than the body and these feelings.
Mhm.
I investigate these feelings. I investigate my pleasant feelings, my unpleasant feelings. I investigate my desires, ill wills sometimes,
Mhm.
everything. But it's also a remembering of all that makes me human too.
Mhm.
Um, I feel that that's what brings me into the next part of equanimity. Um, and for me, in order to get to the equanimity, which is this calm state, this calm mental state, um, just being with whatever is coming and going, I was able to really develop that through the four foundations of meditation, right? So often, a lot of us try to practice meditation. There are many forms of meditation, but a lot of people don't sustain it. And
Mhm.
I wanted to explore, okay, how can I help people sustain this meditation practice that could be, boring for some people, or too active for others, or uncomfortable for most.
Mhm.
And so with the four foundation of mindfulness meditation, we go through an order. And you have mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of thoughts, and mindfulness of mind state and experience. So when I first started my meditation practice, I was just jumping right into thoughts like, don't think, don't think, don't think. Um, but when I started practicing in this order, I felt into the body first. And the beginning of my mindfulness meditation practice, it was very challenging to be with the body. And so
Right.
often we are taught to breathe in, breathe out, feel. And for me, it was so interesting because when I would first practice, before sitting on the cushion, I'm fine. That's how I felt.
Mhm.
And when I would sit on the cushion, I'm like, my chest feels tight. Everything is uncomfortable. I'm hot. I'm thinking, what is
Mhm.
happening? I feel itchy. And we can just be with all of that. I had to learn to just be with all of that. I learned to be with the shortness of breath that would come up during meditation. And through that investigation, I realized that that tightness of breath, that anxiety came from when I lost my uncle and just
Mhm.
watching him having like his last breath, literally. And so, and feeling into my body, feeling things that, you know, are uncomfortable, and being with that and still holding compassion for that. And then understanding the thoughts like between my in breath and out breath, what the heck is happening here? Like what comes up? And sometimes a lot of times people tell you not to think, which I think will happen eventually. But I also feel like there's something very important when we recognize what's happening between the in and out breath, but just not getting controlled by it.
Mhm.
We learn through mindfulness meditation how to recognize when you're thinking, to recognize what's coming up, but then use an anchor like breath, like bodily sensations, like sound to help us come back. And I believe that the more we practice that, we become more observant of our moment to moment experience instead of reactors. And
Mhm.
reaction, this quick reaction, arguing, intense like emotions towards unpleasantness, those things kind of create the suffering. And this is not to say that we can't be angry or sad.
Right.
We can. And it's important too, because then that creates suppression, and that's not good either. So
Mhm.
we are allowed to be angry and upset and to express that, and then thank yourself for expressing that. It's this practice of
Mhm.
allowing this human experience to happen. And so with all of that, that's how equanimity can be attained. um, I want to share this quote. by Maya Angelou. And if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. That's
Mm.
um, do you have any questions about anything so far?
Um, you when you talked about the 4 steps of mindfulness, do you mean like as you're getting into mindfulness meditation, like where you're paying attention to? Is that
Mhm.
what you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's both, right? So it means where we paying attention to in the order of our meditation practice. It could be in
Mhm.
that same practice, that same day, that same duration. Or for most of us, we stay on number one, mindfulness of
Mhm.
mindfulness of the breath. Um, I believe that it can go both ways. So I'll repeat them again, like mindfulness of the body or breath. This is where we have mindfulness breathing. We are detecting the in and outflow of the breath. We're taking nice, deep, long inhalations and exhalations and feeling where the breath is easiest to detect. And how does that feel? For some people, that the paying attention or using the breath as an anchor is too intense for them, so you can go into something else during that meditation practice, which is mindfulness of feeling. So
Mhm.
mindfulness of feeling is more of a bodily sensation. Um, so like, do you feel cool? Do you feel hot? Or even just noticing, like right now, I'm sitting on this chair that I should have paid $10 more for a different chair, and it probably would have been more comfortable because this cushion is not doing it for me. So just be
Mhm.
mindful of that, um, of your posture, everything. And then you have mindfulness of thought. You know, what thoughts are arising, your desires, your even ill wills and things of that nature, pleasure, unpleasant, which can also go to feeling. And then the mind state or experience. Like, what is the experience of this entire mindfulness practice? Um, and I like to think of like our mind state like opening up the refrigerator. So opening up your mind, and then you're seeing your
Mhm.
refrigerator and you're looking at everything that's in it. And then you're asking yourself, are these things in the refrigerator the things that I want to feed my mind, my body?
Mm.
And so the same with the mind, you open it up, you see this experience, and based on the ingredients within your mind or your entire emotions. So I want us to practice for a few minutes meditation, and we're going to go through the foundation. And
Okay.
let me just set this up. Okay, so we can we're beginning by finding a comfortable position that feels right for you, a posture that feels both relaxed and alert. You might want to bring the shoulders up towards your ear, back and down, just to recognize any tension there and just releasing it, or any tension you can recognize or tightness you can recognize within the body. Begin to find ways to release it. And perhaps you want to fill your body with this half smile of kindness. Now, bringing your attention to the fact that your body is breathing. Notice that it is always breathing. It breathes naturally. This breath travels throughout our body and begin to notice where it's easiest to feel the breath. It might be coolness you feel in your nostrils or the warmth on your upper lips. And you might also feel, like as you're inhaling, the tingling sensation in your throat. It could be the rise or fall of your chest or belly. And it might just be this full a sensation of the whole body just breathing. Wherever you find the breath easiest to feel or most pleasant, rest your kind attention there. You find this a little maybe too challenging for you, you can also place your hand on your belly or your chest just to feel the rise and fall of the belly and chest. And just learning and feeling how beautiful it is just to be with this breath. Now let yourself feel the next 3 in and out breaths. As you feel each breath, let the mind calm and the body relax. You might notice that thoughts are arising, which this is normal. But we allow the breath to anchor us back into our present moment. There's no judgment here. This is your practice. You're returning to, return into yourself, return into your breath. You can notice now what the body feels like. Does it feel cool, warm? Are your buttocks comfortable? Are your shoulders tight or at ease? What does the hands feel like? And do any of these things feel pleasant or unpleasant? You can always go back to the breath if these bodily sensations are too intense. And if the breath is too intense, you can go to sound or bodily sensations. Then we go into the mind, the thoughts. Are they anxious or calm? Are you filled with doubts or encouraged? Is there joy or sadness? What are the thoughts like? Just noticing that. And what is your overall experience in this moment? In closing, I'm going to share a poem from Lao, from the Tao. Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is sacred. It can't be improved. If you tamper with it, you'll ruin it. If you treat it like an object, you'll lose it. There is a time for being ahead, a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, a time for being at rest, a time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, a time for being in danger. The master sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle. How was that?
Um, it's nice. You know, I do, I do think a lot, but the thing is, I think I'm thinking either way, you know? So if I can kind of just be like in a calm feeling with the thoughts, like it's they don't stick around as much as long.
Right, right. It
Yeah.
like goes back to like, all right, it arrives. Now let's just let it go. It's gonna come. Just
Hmm.
oh goodbye.
Yeah.
Um, I thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
um, I do these once a week. Um, it's interesting because um, as a Dharma teacher, I've been teaching mindfulness meditation on a secular level, like not
Hmm.
making it so spiritual. Um, so just coming into this space, just wanted to keep roots into where this practice actually derived from. So with all that
Hmm.
said, there are times where I'll be quoting Buddha and things of that nature just to give respect to the root of the practice. Um,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, I hope to see you again. And
Yeah. Your hair got so long.
feeling myself the other day. But it's good
Oh,
to see you. Let's chat more off here.
okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.